Hi guys, this is Anandita from YourFirstNature. In today's Greening My Life episode, I am going to talk about fertilizers.
Last week we started talking about fertilizers. This week we are going to continue with that discussion. If you haven't watched first episode yet, please do check it out in order to get a better understanding of fertilizers.
Before I get into it, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button. That way you will be notified about our new videos every week. We post gardening related content every single week. The next thing that you need to consider is quick versus slow release. Every fertilizer will have a definite time period within which the fertilizer components will be broken down into the most basic components suitable for your plants to intake through their roots. Based on that, we can classify all fertilizers as quick release or slow release. In general, liquid fertilizers are much more quick release because it is already in liquid form, and the microorganisms that are present in your soil, they will quickly break it down to the most basic form, that is nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. Whereas in general, the solid fertilizers take a little bit more time to break down into such smaller components. Your plants can absorb liquid fertilizers much more quickly and much more easily through their root system. However, liquid fertilizer is very easily run off when you are watering your plants. On the other hand, solid fertilizers will take a little bit more time to break down into the most basic components, but it will not so easily run off when you are watering your plants. So, ideally, I recommend using a combination of both. For example, I use some kind of solid fertilizer when I am potting the plant in its pot. But I also add liquid fertilizer every 15 days or 1 month during the growing season, so that the plant always has the required amount of nutrition. Here I would like to mention one thing is that during monsoon season, when if a plant is outside and it's continuously raining and the plant is getting all the rainwater, don't use liquid fertilizer, because in that case the liquid fertilizer will get run off even before the plant gets the time to absorb it through their root system. However, there is another way you can give a quick release fertilizer to your plants even during monsoon season. I will come to that in the next point. The next thing that you need to consider is the method of application. So the most common methods of application are: one is definitely mixing the solid fertilizer with your soil, or maybe burying some of the fertilizer inside the soil around the stem. The other method is through soil drench. That is, you mix the fertilizer with water and water your plants with that mixture, the diluted fertilizer. The third method is through foliar spray. Foliar spray is actually very effective because your plant actually can absorb nutrition 8 times better when the nutrition is provided in the form of foliar spray. That basically means rather than drenching the soil with the diluted fertilizer, you just spray it on the foliage, and the plants can readily, immediately, maybe within a day, the plants can actually absorb the entire amount of fertilizer and they get the nutrition that they need. So 2 times I find foliar spray to be very, very effective. One is during monsoon season, when I know that solid fertilizer is okay, I can apply that, but it generally takes a lot more time for me. But I cannot really apply any kind of liquid fertilizer because it will get run off anyways through rains. So what I do is I apply some foliar spray, and within a day my plants get their nutrition. Another time when foliar spray is very effective is when your plant is actually suffering from some kind of deficiency. If your plant has some nutrition, one of the nutrition component deficiency, then the plants need fix as soon as possible. Otherwise it will keep on suffering, and after that, if it is too late, you may not be able to save your plant. So at that time, if you are providing that nutrition through foliar spray, then the plant will immediately absorb that nutrition and start getting better. On the other hand, the heavy feeder plants, that is the fruiting or flowering plants or even the vegetable plants, I prefer to add a lot of solid fertilizer also in their soil, mix that with their soil, because that way it will be slow release, it will continuously keep on releasing nutrition for a longer period of time, even if it is not a lot of nutrition at one point of time, it will keep on consistently releasing a little bit of nutrition to the plant and keep on feeding the plant over a period of time. The next is the form of fertilizer. One is the liquid fertilizer, which we have already talked about. The solid fertilizer can also come in various forms. It can be fertilizer sticks, it can be balls or granules, or even vermicompost or homemade compost or cow dung compost kind of. It looks like soil. So basically a kind of granules only. So you have to decide what suits your need the best and decide your fertilizer accordingly. I find the form of fertilizer to be most relevant in terms of convenience, because there are some fertilizers which are very easy to apply and some fertilizers are a little more difficult to apply. So I generally choose the form that suits my needs in the most perfect way, and if it is the most convenient, then that's the best. Always remember to dilute your fertilizers, because even if organic fertilizers reduce the risk of fertilizer burn, but still overuse of fertilizers can be harmful for your plants. So always dilute it. In fact, if your label is saying that dilute it in 1:10 ratio, I would suggest that make it 1:20. So mix the fertilizer in half the strength than recommended, and maybe apply more frequently, maybe in every 15 days or every month, so that your plant never runs out of nutrition, but at the same time, the risk of fertilizer burn is also minimized. Also remember that there are some fertilizers that make the soil slightly acidic. It's important to know, because every plant needs a perfect pH level of the soil in order to survive or to grow to the best of their abilities. So if the fertilizer you are using is shifting the soil pH, then you may need to correct that using some other corrective measures. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is some of the most popular fertilizers available in the market and their pros and cons. By pros and cons, I mean to say if it is slow release or quick release, and also their NPK ratios. I would not be able to mention the exact ratio of each of these fertilizers, but I can at least mention if that plant is high on nitrogen or high on phosphorus or high on potassium.
One of the most common and most popular fertilizer available in the market is vermicompost. It's made through decomposition of organic matter by earthworms. It has a high nitrogen content but have decent levels of phosphorus and potassium also. It's a slow release fertilizer. The next one is seaweed. Seaweed is also a naturally found fertilizer. It's nothing but aquatic plant material. It's found in the market in solid or in liquid form. The liquid is a quick release fertilizer and the solid is a slow release fertilizer. It is rich in nitrogen and in potassium, but is not that good in phosphorus content. The next one is fish emulsion. Fish emulsion is the byproduct in the fishing industry. It's basically decomposed fish waste. Fish emulsion is also available in solid and liquid form. Liquid is quick release, whereas the solid is slow release. It has a very high nitrogen content, but have some level of potassium and phosphorus also, but not that great in either of them. Another great fertilizer is homemade compost, which is made through decomposition of solid food waste. It is pretty easy to make at home and completely free of cost, and it is basically converting your food waste into solid gold for your garden. Homemade compost is pretty balanced and it is slow release. Another very good and very common fertilizer is cow dung manure. Cow dung compost is basically decomposed cow dung. It is rich in nitrogen and have very decent levels of potassium and phosphorus also. It is a solid fertilizer, so it's a slow release fertilizer. A similar good fertilizer is chicken manure. The next one that I'm going to talk about is bone meal. It's one of my most favorite fertilizers, and it is very rich in phosphorus, but it doesn't have almost any nitrogen or any potassium. It is moderately quick release. That means it will be ready for absorption by your plants within a few weeks or so. It is very good for flowering and fruiting plants and also root vegetables. Another very good source of phosphorus is rock phosphate. It's slow release, so it will probably take quite a few months or maybe years to completely decompose and be ready for absorption by your plant. There are many more fertilizers available in the market. I just mentioned a few popular ones in order to demonstrate how NPK ratio is very important for you to understand, as well as how long it will take for your plant to absorb that fertilizer.
The next thing that I'm going to talk about is how I apply fertilizers to my plants. So my approach is that I understand the fertilizer need of the plant and then look at the fertilizer components of each of the fertilizers, and accordingly I decide. For example, seaweed is very good in potassium. It is not bad in nitrogen, but it's not good for phosphorus. At the same time, fish emulsion actually is much better for nitrogen. It has decent levels of potassium but not that much of phosphorus. So what I do is, for my foliage plants, I make a mixture of seaweed fertilizer and fish emulsion and do a soil drench or foliar spray once every month. For my fruiting and vegetable plants and also the root vegetables, they need a little bit more phosphorus, and my seaweed solution and fish emulsion mixture cannot provide that much amount of phosphorus as they need. So what I do is I add 1 teaspoon of bone meal, which is very high in phosphorus, but it doesn't have much nitrogen or potassium at all. So I add 1 teaspoon of bone meal every month to all my fruiting, flowering and root vegetable plants. There are some fertilizers available in the market which are made by combining few of these fertilizers to provide more than one benefits to your plants through just one fertilizers. One example of such fertilizer is G5 fertilizer, which has seaweed, humic acid and a few more components. I don't remember all the components right now, but it is a pretty good fertilizer in itself. While potting my plants, I generally use vermicompost or cow dung compost or homemade compost, and then every month I apply either that liquid fertilizer combination, that is seaweed fertilizer and fish emulsion, or I apply either vermicompost or cow dung compost or homemade compost or G5 fertilizer. So this is actually just the fertilizers that I use. There are many other fertilizers, organic fertilizers available in the market, and there are many other fertilizers that you can make completely at home. For example, onion peel fertilizer or banana peel fertilizer and vegetable peel fertilizer. All these are pretty good and pretty effective solutions, pretty effective fertilizers available for your plants. The only thing that you need to keep in mind is that try to understand what kind of nutrition, what kind of nutritional element that fertilizer is providing to your plant, so that you can make sure that the plant gets every type of nutrition. So that's all for today. I hope this fertilizer series helped you. If you have learned something new, please do let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any other comments or suggestions or feedback, please let me know. If you find our videos useful, please hit the like button and share with your friends and family. And also do not forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification button so that you are notified about our new videos every week. I will see you again next week with a brand new topic. Until then, have a nice day. Bye-bye.